Hey everybody. The 8 o'clock advisory really didn't change a whole lot. And let's show you here. Winds are still 80 miles per hour. Pressure did drop down. That means it's getting stronger. It was 997 at the 5 o'clock, and this 8 o'clock is now at 990. Now it did slow down 1 mile per hour to 13, going to the northwest still. And there you can see the live radar from Puerto Rico. 2 years ago, I would not have been able to show this to you because the radar site got knocked completely out along with everything else. Of course, they did have two hurricanes. Maria was just the second one. So anyway, and there you can see the infrared satellite image. So let's go ahead. Hurricane hunters have been out there. They're still out there. I've got one here. It might be hard for you to see, but you can see this brown line. And if you look, right here is the hurricane hunter. He just went through the center of it. They didn't see enough of the wind change to make a difference. There's also been two others out there. I think there's another one about to get there. And so they're out there checking it out. So again, the current status there I gave you. Now the forecast cone, I'll just go over this again. It's the same as it was 3 hours ago. I won't get an update on the forecast cone until 11 o'clock tonight. So it's still the same. And yes, there's still dry air. Go ahead and I got to bring this down from one of my mini monitors. Yes, it is definitely in open waters now. And at the current path, it's actually going to go around most of the Bahamas. So, Alan over on YouTube, it's too early to tell. I mean, that forecast cone goes from Savannah, Georgia, all the way down to the Keys. So, anywhere in that cone, we can make landfall. Let's go ahead and take a look at water vapor. Got to load up all the frames here. All that brown, that's dry air. Now it does look like it's not near, at least on this and infrared, it's not quite as good looking as it was 3 hours ago. And I think a lot of that is because of this dry air that's over in here is actually starting to feed into it right there. We still have this upper level low that's up here that's going to help steer it. Now they are expecting for this to drift down towards the DR on that upper level low. But that upper level low is help feeding it that dry air, and it's also keeping from the wind shear from it. It's keeping the storms mainly over here on the eastern side of it. No, this is GR Earth. It's the GR Earth I'm using. So I'll switch back to infrared. And you can see, I mean, it's still got real tight circulation on it. But you could see these storms being blowing out on the eastern side of it. And I think a lot of that is this low that's right here, upper level low. So those winds are coming around and shoving everything back this direction. I don't think that's going to kill it. It's just holding it back. It is over open waters. The more it goes northwest, the better everything's looking. Yeah, which model is that, Alan? Because I'm not seeing that on tidbits. That must be one of the unreliable. It kind of looks that way here, but watch when I go over to GR3. That eye wall is almost totally filled in. I'll zoom in on it here. Look at that. That's more impressive than the satellite view. Oh, the Cotty? Yeah, that's... I don't really go by that one. My main model that I keep an eye on, and it's more reliable than any other model, and that's the Euro. And then as this thing gets closer to Florida, the GFS will start coinciding with the Euro a lot better. Right now, they're kind of coinciding for the first 100 or so miles, but then when it gets closer to Florida, it spreads out. The Euro's got it hitting somewhere in the southern part of Florida, going out in the Gulf, where the GFS has it going up by Jacksonville, Florida, and making landfall. And yeah, the radar itself looks so much better than what satellite view does. Now let me switch back to satellite for the infrared, and I'll zoom in on it. And you can see that eye trying to fill in there. Let's see. Let me switch back to GR3 and pause it. Go to the latest scan. Put a marker. I'm showing about 9.5, 10 miles across the eye. Is about what I'm showing. It's a real small storm, but it's going to have a real small eye. Yeah, we got to keep a close eye on this, Alan. You're over on YouTube. Nobody else can see what you're saying, but I can. Now, since those millibars dropped, not by a whole lot, but that tells me it's still getting stronger. The lower the number on the pressure, the stronger it's getting. And it almost looks on this one scan like it's trying to do a replacement right there. When I go back a couple, the eye is a lot bigger. See that? And look how that closes in. It's trying to really tighten up. That's the newest scan. And I'll be getting a new scan in about a minute and a half. So it may be trying to go through some sort of a replacement. It's not a full eye wall yet. Yeah, typically yes, until it gets so small. It'll get to a point where that eye will get real tight, and then it'll go through what they call an eye wall replacement. It'll start building a new eye wall around it. The inner one will fall apart, and the new one will take over. So we got to keep an eye out for that. But since it's not a full eye wall yet, all the way around, uh, it's got a little bit of growth. Yes, it will get larger overnight, and that's something that I talked about last night. A lot of these tropical storms will get stronger overnight, and the reason for that is the water's still really warm, so you got all that moisture rising. The upper atmosphere starts cooling off as the sun goes down, so you got that big difference in temperature between the sea level and the storm itself, and it'll cause it to intensify. Not always, Alan. Sometimes you can get an eye wall replacement even on a small hurricane. Doesn't have to be a Cat 4 or 5 to see it happen. I've seen it several times. This thing, it's been a pretty compact storm all along. 24 hours ago, this thing was really ragged. It was more popcorn clouds popping up and down. Hey, Gavin. And then this morning, that's when it got this eye showing up on it. Instead of the popcorn thunderstorms around the center of rotation. Hey, you're quite welcome. I love covering this stuff. It just amazes me. Sometimes this amazes me more than tornadoes. But don't tell my boss that. But anyway, so overnight, this thing's due to re-strengthen. And it's definitely... Let me stop this on Earth. And let's get rid of the satellite a moment. Yes, it did. In less than 20. Well, yeah, it was 50, I believe, last night. Didn't take it long to get to 60. I seen it get to 70 early this morning, around when I broadcast at 8 o'clock. And I was asked, will it turn into a hurricane before it hits Puerto Rico? Well, it fooled me. And one of the reasons why is that upper level low that I was talking about. It steered it away from Puerto Rico. So it stayed, except for the Virgin Islands, that's where it blew up over. It kept it over warm waters instead of going over land, like Puerto Rico's mountains would have killed it, or it weakened it severely. But since it went further northeast than what the Euro or even the GFS had was, the tracks for it, it went out of that model. It was actually, I looked at the lines and where the center of rotation was, and it was out of sequence with the models. And because of that, it was able to re-strengthen. So, as you can see here, okay, it's down. Now let's use yellow. It's down in this area, right? And the forecast cone, the center of the forecast cone is roughly like that. It's going around the Bahama Islands. So those are not even going to slow it down. And all these waters in this whole area that's going to travel is in the mid to upper 80s. Yeah, reason why, Alan, over on YouTube, the reason why it held itself together, even with that dry air, if you would have looked at this 24 to the last 36 hours, it wasn't able to pull in any of that dry air. And the reason why is because it was so compact, it was taking care of itself. No big D. It went totally west. Totally east of the DR. It actually went east of Puerto Rico. This is Puerto Rico. Now, last night, they kind of had the models showing that was going to cross. That kind of worried me because right across here are some mountains that the highest peak is 4,390 feet. That would undercut the storm. But instead, it went through here. And that's all because of an upper level low that was spinning around this way and steered it further to the east. And come on, there she goes. So there's Puerto Rico. And oh man, look at this last scan. You can really see the eye. Way too early to tell. Way too early. A Cat 4 in the Gulf? I don't think so. Because it's definitely going to weaken if it crosses over Florida. And according to the Euro, which I'll show you here in a bit, it's not going to stay over the Gulf for very long. Yeah, that is really well defined. That's the latest infrared satellite scan. You can see that green there in the center. That's the eye. Now, what's going to be really cool tomorrow, because I really think that he's looking at GR Earth. Yeah, I've discussed that here in a bit. I don't quite agree with the models that they use there. But anyway, this thing's going to be really cool in the daytime to get to see it and get the center of rotation really showing up, because I know it's going to get stronger. And like I said 3 hours ago, I really expect this to speed up as well. If it does that, it's going to hit Florida even sooner. As of right now, same as 3 hours ago, they're talking about landfall Sunday night, Monday morning, depending whether it goes north or south. My boss man, Nathan Moore, he won't be chasing this if it's going to make landfall on Monday. A Sunday landfall, he said he would go down there, but he has to work on Monday. And Jennifer McMahon, 3 hours ago, she was talking about getting her car ready, and she's going to be heading down there. And Michael Koch, he was talking about going down. And there's one other chaser that's talking about going down. I'll let you know when I know more. I think they're kind of waiting to get past tomorrow to make their full plans Friday. And I will let everybody know exactly who's going down and where they plan on being. So, I'll go ahead and go back to water vapor and put it in motion so you can see. I don't know. I haven't talked to Dustin in over a year. But as you can see, and I'll pause this a minute, right there, that's the upper level low that I'm talking about. And you can see how it's steering it. If it hadn't have been for that upper level low, which they were expecting a couple of days ago, for that upper level low to be down here, or even all the way down into the DR. If it would have done that, this path would have been more like that instead of it going up this way. So even though that's a weak low system, and you can see it rotate here, it's strong enough to help steer this. And it's also bringing in this drier air that's down below the storm, and that's the reason why she's kind of lopsided. Once it gets away from this drier air and gets away, now that upper level low, it's not only help steering it, there's some wind shear there. So, and I was showing that on my last broadcast. It's not real strong shear, but that's partly why you see all these storms over on the eastern side and not a whole bunch, circling around the center. So she's still playing with some shear. This low is still look like it's going to drift south, southwest, somewhere in there. Now another thing is there's going to be a ridge here in a few days. And this ridge is going to produce a high. And I'll bring it down. It's going to be somewhere in there when this ridge gets down here. That's going to help steering it. And that's the reason why on that cone it ends up taking that curve. That's GFS, sort of, kind of. Here's the euro. It depends on how strong this high is. If it's a weak one, it'll go more up towards Jacksonville, Florida, maybe Georgia, or even South Carolina. If it's really strong, it's going to keep it shoved down to southern Florida. So there's another cog in the wheel of how this thing's going to go. So now maybe you can understand. We've got wind shear, we got dry air. We don't have to worry about landfall, but we do got to worry about that ridge that's going to be setting up. Not a whole lot, Patty. Millibars dropped down from 997 to 990, and the speed slowed down from 14 to 13. Still moving northwest, still 80-mile-per-hour winds. So not a whole lot of big change. The cone won't update till 11 o'clock Eastern tonight. But like I was saying, everything that's going in to these models that's going to determine the path of this thing is going to be this upper level low. How is the wind shear going to affect it? How's it going to steer it? Is that low going to go southwest and get away from it? At that point, it won't have any more shear, and it'll be wide open coming to the northwest. But that ridge that's going to set up here in a few days and produce that high pressure, how is that going to steer it? So it's all these things, all these different cogs. And 3 hours ago, I had somebody ask me, Barry, where do you think it's going to make landfall? Where do you think it's going to go? Well, it's going to hit land. I can guarantee you that. Even if it dies out, the remnants of it will hit land. Other than that, it's way, way too early. I still want people that lives in Florida, do your shopping now. I've already heard from one person I talked to on our Zello that the stores are already getting crowded. Hey, Conan. So don't hesitate. Don't wait till the last minute. The longer you wait, the harder it's going to be to get into the stores and get supplies. Be sure and build you an emergency kit with non-perishable food. Be sure if you got pets that you got food for them. Be sure you have your medicine and your family's medicine and your pets. Now, I can't show you this graphic because I only got it on my phone at this point. But here's some things to think about. Decide on a shelter. If you live in Florida, Georgia, near the coast, South Carolina, North Carolina, decide on a safe place to take shelter to get inland. You may not have to go 100 miles. Just be able to get inland and get away from the flood-prone areas. Also, like I was saying, get your supplies now. Don't wait. Be sure, fuel up your car. Here's an idea. Hey, Nathan. Still a Cat 1. But here's an idea. If you got a propane grill, go get a full tank, an extra tank, and you'll be able to cook on it. Because remember, when this thing hits, most likely you're not going to have any power. Be sure and get cash out of the bank. Credit cards are not going to work if the power's out. Storage cash registers aren't going to work. They're only going to take cash. Be sure and fuel up your vehicles and get them ready. Also, insurance checkup. For those of you that live in those kinds of areas that's prone to this stuff, you better check your insurance and make sure you're covered. Protect a home as best as you can. Don't tape your windows. It's not going to do you any good. It's a waste of time and money. That time could be better spent putting up plywood. Now, flying objects will still go through the plywood, but you'll end up most likely with a smaller hole for the air to get in, the winds, than not putting plywood up. Plywood's better than nothing. Yeah, Central Florida, I've already heard that they have declared emergency ahead of time. I still believe this thing's going to speed up. And if it does, and it's still going to be a Cat 3, it's going to hit Florida a little sooner. So don't wait. Also, help a friend. I mean, good God. I know you people live down there, know your neighbors, and I know you know some elderly neighbors. Help them out. Be sure and help your friends and your neighbors. Their lives may depend on you helping. Also, I would go ahead and have a written plan. How big could this get? Well, it only goes up to Cat 5. Do I think it's going to make that? I have no clue. It's way too early to tell. But I would have a written plan, something you can follow. Yeah, definitely check your elderly neighbors. Uh, it's hard for elderly people, to take care of a situation like this. So help them out. Do the best you can before you have to leave. Also, if you are ordered to evacuate, please do. It just doesn't make sense to stay in your home when you got a Cat 3 coming at you. It just doesn't make sense. Unless your house is underground. And I doubt that in Florida with all the sinkholes and sand and all that. So that's what I would suggest. And I would suggest starting now. Don't wait. The longer you wait, the harder it's going to be. Do not procrastinate. Oh man. Big D on YouTube says his next door neighbor is 87. Fell yesterday and broke his hip. Good Lord, man. Let me show you the Safford-Simpson. It's this official scale. I'll go back to full screen here so you can see it all. There you go. Cat 3 is anywhere from 111 to 129 miles per hour. That's your official category scale, the Safford-Simpson. And I'll leave that up there if you want to take a screenshot. If you'd like for me to print it out and send it to you by mail, I charge $100. Just kidding. Actually, you can see down in the bottom corner, this came from NOAA. Compare to the winds of a tornado. That's a rough comparison, and the reason why is because if you're in a hurricane, you're mainly going to get winds from one direction, where tornado, you have rotation. So it's apples and oranges. Yeah, you'll have your sustained winds and wind gusts, which right now sustained winds is 80 miles per hour. So it's already gusting better than that. So we can go back to the radar. Yeah, more like straight line winds. Now remember, okay, this thing's traveling northwest. Okay, let me pull this down where I can tell it straight. I've always tried to tell you guys where the strongest part of the tropical storm is. It's what we call the northeast quadrant. Since this thing is traveling northwest, this is the quadrant that I would be talking about. And as you can see, it's already a larger amount of thunderstorms in that area. So let's say the center of this hits Miami. Is Miami going to get the worst? No. North of Miami would get the worst if this thing's tracking the way it's doing right now. Also, this area is where you will often see quick spin up tornadoes, also in that area. Yep, the right front quadrant, the northeast quadrant, as we usually say. I don't know, Nathan. If you look at the euro, yes, it's headed for Miami, thereabouts. If you look at the GFS, it's headed for Jacksonville. Let's go ahead and pull some of the models up. That looks like there's still another hurricane hunter out there playing around. Forecast models. Here's the GFS. I gotta wait till it loads up. For some reason, my internet is slow today. So the first 100 or so miles, this thing with the GFS and the Euro is pretty close. But once it gets this far, then everything kind of spreads out. But you can see there, oh crap, wrong scene. I hate doing this when I'm tired. Anyway, so there it is. This is Monday, 12Z Monday. Hey, thanks for the subscription to Twitch Prime. Appreciate that. But there you can see where it's GFS has got it. And let's go ahead and step this forward. Comes inland. Kind of meanders around. And then just falls apart naturally because it's over land. And then starts heading out to sea. Now we'll look at the Euro. And I'm going to pick lines of equal pressure and 850 millibar winds. And let's back it up. Let me go ahead and just play this so it will load all the frames, and then I'll go step by step. There, as you can see, the Euro has got it crossing over Florida and going into the Gulf. So that could be interesting, Nathan. Here we go step by step. I'll zoom in. There you can see it crossing Florida down around Miami. Late Monday night. There it is in the Gulf. Actually, Alan, over on YouTube, the Euro is always, until it gets a lot closer, then the GFS will start to chime in with the Euro. I always look at Euro first. Before I started my broadcast, I went through this Euro. Let's go ahead and play it ahead. Now, she comes second landfall in Alabama. And then starts turning right. That's the end of that run. Still way too early. Way too early. Nathan, I'm thinking now this thing is over open waters. Very little to hold it back. A little bit of wind shear. A little bit of wind shear, but I think once that upper level low that's on the northwest side gets out of the way and it punches through that shear, I'm actually thinking it's going to speed up. If it does, it'll hit Florida a little sooner. Doggone it. What model was that? I looked at shear. Yeah. Yeah, that'll be the shortest path from where it is right now. Got it. I did this earlier, and I couldn't remember which of these had share. Well, anyway, you can see the upper level low. It's right there. So that's what kind of steered it this morning, Nathan. Instead of hitting Puerto Rico, it shoved it east over the Virgin Islands. Yeah, Orlando is be crowded. Hey, thanks for the cheers. Appreciate those bits. I really do. Really helps me out. But this upper level low is kind of playing games with this. I don't know if you was watching a little earlier, Nathan, but I think the wraparound on this low is, for one, it's pushing with some shear a lot of the storms to the east, and plus it's helping bring in some dry air. But from what I was seeing on the models, this low should be dropping down to the DR. And if it does, this thing will have a clear path. Okay, Big D over on YouTube. Thanks for joining me, bud. I'll be doing another broadcast at after the 11 o'clock update tonight. I'm not sure about my schedule tomorrow just yet. If you miss one of my broadcasts, it's a nice thing about Twitch, and you can do it on YouTube. You can go back and watch my video. So yeah, Nathan, we'll have to just keep an eye on this over the next 24 hours. I do think it's going to strengthen. Yeah, that would be Eastern time, Molly. Yeah, I do everything in Eastern time. For this storm, all the National Hurricane Center updates are Eastern. Yeah, it's going to get wild, Doc, after tomorrow. After tomorrow. I mean, they're calling Sunday night 115 miles per hour winds, possibly. So it's going to be at least a Cat 2 if it hits southern Florida as of right now. Cat 3 if it goes to northern Florida. And that's only because it's got a longer chance of getting stronger. And with all these warm waters, it's going around all the Bahamas, according to the current track. So that's not going to slow it down. Yeah, so far, I believe the Euro. But if it crosses over Florida and gets into the Gulf, for one, it's going to weaken. And it's going to depend on how fast it's moving. If it's moving really slow and it gets over land, it's going to start dying quick. It may not be much by the time it gets into the Gulf. But the Gulf has warmer waters. They're up in the 90-degree range. So it'll re-strengthen. How much? It just all depends on how long it's over the Gulf. It could be like Hurricane Barry, here a couple months ago, just totally weaken out and then try to rebuild right before it made landfall, and it only made Cat 1. I hope it's not a Sharknado. Oh God, I tried watching those movies. Oh Lord, they're goofy. Yeah, this thing's got a long way to go. I mean, one of my main concerns yesterday, as I told everybody, was it going over land. I wasn't going to really get excited until I seen how strong it was after it passed over either Puerto Rico or the other day the DR. DR would have definitely killed it with 10,000 foot mountain. But now it's away from land. It's over 60 miles away from San Juan. And the next landfall, according to its current track, is going to be Florida. But this, depending on that high, that ridge that's going to form down around Georgia and northern Florida, and it's going to produce a high, depending on what that high does, could depend whether, this thing crosses southern Florida like the Euro, or the GFS crossing further north if it's weaker. Who knows? If that ridge and that high shifts further east, it could steer it up to Georgia, South Carolina, or even North Carolina. So there's so many things that's the cogs on the wheel that is going to play a big role. So right now it's just set and wait. Oh yeah, Charles and Reed, I know they'll be down there. Hopefully Reed don't get stuck in the mud again. He's getting a bad habit of that. So that's all I've got. As far as I know, 3 hours ago, Jennifer signed off the chat, said she was going to get her car ready. So, as far as I know, she's definitely going. Oh, you're quite welcome. Okay, Doc. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and call it. I need to get something to eat. Kind of lay down for a little bit. I will be back for the 11 o'clock update. It might be a few minutes later. This time I was able to go live a little sooner because I got the information sooner. Booking your plane flight. Cool, Nathan. Be sure you can get it where you can get your money back. So I'm going to go ahead and call it. Nathan will stay in touch with you. And I'll be back sometime after 11. If they get me the information early, I'll be on 10 or 15 after. If it comes in a little bit later, I'll be a little bit later naturally. So thanks everybody for joining me. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the donations. It really helps me out. It keeps me coming to you. I'm going to try to keep up with all the latest and greatest information and the models and try to help everybody out. Please, if you live in Florida, coastal Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, take this storm serious. Start planning now. Okay? Thanks. We'll catch you at 11 o'clock.